Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second edition of Connect Dev Africa. We are glad that you could join us for this session. We started this meetup to connect with other developers and developer communities in Africa to learn and showcase the different projects that everyone is working on, and as well to grow the African developer community. My name is Alex, and I'm a developer advocate at Prisma, and I'll be your host for today. We have two awesome guests lined up for you today. And first one will be Anthony Kiplimo giving us a talk on Elarian, a tale of communication and data, and Segun Adebayo, the creator of Chakra UI, on building accessible components. So I will go ahead and share my screen for a moment so that we can get some engagement from you as well. Awesome. So yeah, you can participate in the short survey. It will be about 2 or 3 questions. We'd love to learn more about you. You can scan the QR code on your screen, and I will post the link to the Slido as well in the chat. Awesome. Yes. So let's get started. It seems it. Yeah. Let me know if you have a link to the Slido. So let's get started with the first question. So, which of these most closely describes your work? I would love to know. Are you a front-end developer? Are you a back-end, full stack, mobile, any other thing? Let us know. I'd say somewhere there. I have no idea. So it's somewhere around full stack because I dabble a bit in front end and sometimes in the back end. But let us know what part of the stack you are a part of. Awesome. Seems the majority of us are front end developers, and it keeps getting stronger. We're the full stack, or the back end, and mobile. That's interesting. Okay. Awesome. So let's go to the next question. Seems the majority of you are front-end developers. That's awesome. And how many years of developer experience do you have? Is it 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, more than 7 years? I'd say I'm somewhere in between 3 and 4 years. It's mostly been jumping around, not knowing what I'm doing, from HTML, CSS, Ruby, C++, then going back to HTML before getting started again with React. Yeah, let us know. Ooh, we have a tie here. This is interesting. We'll let the responses keep streaming in for a moment. The majority, there's a tie between 1 and 2 years and 3 and 4 years. Okay, interesting. And hello, Ashraf. I hope I'm not pronouncing your name wrong. Justin and Ojo, glad to have you here. Awesome. Let's jump into the final question. And what technologies do you use in your stack? Is it React? Is it Node.js? Is it Ruby, Alexa? Let us know. I spend most of my time working with Node.js and React, and of course Prisma. Yeah, it's an interesting stack, and I love the type safety that is usually around that. So this is going to be a word cloud of hopefully a word cloud that for your different responses. React, Node.js. Interesting. Elarian. I have not heard about that. Oh, Africa's Talking. I'd say Africa's Talking is like a Twilio, which I have used. But hopefully Anthony can give you more on that. Chakra UI, Postgres, Prisma. Okay, not applicable. I don't have experience. Frame of Motion, React, Next.js, TypeScript. Ooh, awesome. Oh, thank you, Ashraf. Yeah. I hope I haven't ruined it or jinxed it. React, TypeScript, Node.js, and Chakra UI. Interesting XState. Awesome. So thank you for your responses. We'll jump on to the next segment of this talk. So I'd like to introduce to you our first speaker, Anthony Kiplimo. He is a developer advocate at Africa's Talking, and he is going to talk to you about Elarian, which is a tale of communication and data. And I am going to bring him up on the stage. A moment. I'll stop sharing my screen, bring him up. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Hi there. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Just to provide just a bit of context, I work at Africa's Talking, but joined a new team called Elarian. It's a brand new product, and actually we're calling it a framework. So I'm excited to share more about it. AT has always been the communications company for Africa. If you need an API for SMSs, USSD voice, anything, we essentially can provide that. But we've always asked ourselves a bit of harder questions, like all this kind of data we're generating through SMSs and all these different communication channels. Like, what can we do with this? Can this actually become a new layer, a new tool for developers to really engage their users? Because that's at the end of the day, all of us, as we're building applications, as we're kind of doing all of this, it's really to engage customers and to provide value to the customer. So I'll share my screen in just a moment.
Awesome. And a clarification to the audience, AT is the abbreviation for Africa's Talking. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll share screen. Screen one. Oh, actually, I can share my Chrome tab, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, let me do that instead. Fantastic. Okay.
So I'll bring you to the stream and take it away, Anthony.
Thank you. All right. So just as I explained, we're going to be talking today about building better applications. And the reason behind this is, as developers, we are actually the engineers of touch points that customers have with businesses. And how can we make sure that we are delivering the right experiences for our customers? This is really the question. And this is why we built out Elarian as a customer engagement framework. So this adds us essentially a new layer in between your providers, so like Africa's Talking, Twilio, any of these kind of communication API providers, and we sit right on top of them, collating all the data from all these different spaces and kind of providing it in a customer-centric view. This is achieved through our dashboard, which hopefully I'll get to share a little bit about it towards the end of the call or towards the end of my session. And what really we're trying to do here is, instead of viewing your data from the perspective of how many SMSs you sent, how many WhatsApp messages you sent, or how many phone calls you made in a day, you're now looking at each individual customer's interaction with your product and with your business. The next thing is we sat down and we're like, this is a developer tool. How are we supposed to kind of make this work? So what we decided to do is kind of like completely rethink how SDKs essentially work, all the way down to the protocol level. So our APIs now are no longer running on HTTP. We are running on our sockets, which is essentially a TCP connection. So imagine the way I like to describe it is like Africa's Talking or Twilio kind of makes phone calls. And kind of makes sense SMSs. It's a text, and then you get a text back from the person you sent the message to. But for Elarian, we try to reimagine it as a phone call, right? Where you're always on a phone call with Elarian. We are capturing all this data, and we are essentially providing real-time streaming of customer engagement data, and that's really something we find really cool. So we haven't let go of our native roots, right? We are still a communications company, and it's something that we're still quite proud of. And what we kind of thought through was providing provide not only the online channels, but now imagine combining the data between online and offline channels to better understand your customer. And keeping in mind that in Africa, most people are on offline channels. We text, we call, we use USSD a lot. How are we able to kind of aggregate this data into something meaningful, especially for the African, or rather, really anybody, but primarily for the African market? And the first thing is we provide these core channels, which is messaging. Messaging now includes WhatsApp, Telegram, SMS, USSD voice, and payments. So one really cool thing about, just to go back for a little bit, one really cool thing about how all of this works is that you can bring your own provider, right? We call it BYOC. Bring your own connector. So if you have Stripe, if you have M-Pesa, if you have Tcash, if you have any of these payment APIs, you can plug them into Elarian and essentially be able to kind of like manage that entire kind of like a suite of connections. The next thing is kind of like digging a bit deeper into the framework itself. Like we already have a lot of these capabilities already on the Africa Stalking side, but for Elarian, what we really try to do is provide this unified customer data approach, or rather even views on the dashboard, and it allows you to see for each individual customer, how many messages have they sent you, how many WhatsApps have they sent you, how many USSD sessions, how many payments have they made to you. So you have this singular view of customers. And this over time, it may not be that useful at the same time to kind of view each individual customer. Imagine if you have 1 million customers, you can't keep on digging into each individual customer, but you can create tags. So our tags, what we call tags, is essentially segmentation. You're able to segment your customers based on their behavior. So, for example, you may want to find out how many people sent WhatsApp messages and also made a payment above $500, right? And all of this can kind of be presented as groups of customers that you can engage separately. So, for example, if you have a set of loyal customers, you can be sending them special offers. You can be sending them things like that instead of blasting it to everybody. And maybe they're not engaging with those messages and those offers. So it's kind of a really interesting way for developers from within the developer, where the developer is sitting, to really bring out a lot of these behavioral components to kind of customer interaction. The next thing is metadata. I'd like to think of metadata as kind of like a Firebase, right? A real-time DB on Firebase, right? It essentially stores unstructured data about your customers, so the extra information about them, are they male or female, what's their birthday, their bank account details, something like that. So you can kind of store all of these different pieces of information there. And the next thing is reminders. Reminders is really powerful. I think it's one of the things that we are really excited about in terms of what developers will be able to use it for. So what reminders essentially is a trigger system. So you can set triggers for very specific things. So if a client you collect over $1,000 from a client, you can set a trigger to be sending them very specific messages. They've crossed that threshold. If, for example, a customer hasn't paid back their loan, right? How do you instrument that collection, right? It's through so what we think the reminders feature is actually what's going to help us or help engineers kind of build this out. And these are oftentimes they take quite a bit of time to build out for yourself. And for us, what we feel is something that that will be really exciting is the speed at which developers will be able to essentially reach their customers and build software, right? I'll share a couple of GitHub repos as well, where one of the first examples, just to even prove to ourselves that we actually built something useful, was we built out a micro loan system with less than 200 lines of code, all on Elarian, no extra frameworks, just Elarian kind of managing the phone calls, the payments, and it uses most of the features that I've kind of covered here. Wallets is something very exciting, especially for any devs working in the fintech space. So what Wallets allows you to do essentially it carries two concepts. One is the mini wallets. So whenever a customer makes the first interaction, we create a tiny wallet for them. So it actually behaves more as a ledger more than anything else, but an individualized ledger for each and every customer. And then on the other side of it, we have purses. So it's a funny name in some aspects where we call it a purse. But when we thought about it, we're like, you see, for wallets are often quite tiny. And you can only store so much in them. But women figured it out, and they have a whole bag essentially with all their stuff, different cards, and anything and everything can be inside the purse. And we thought that kind of represented what what we actually have. So what the purse essentially does is that you're able to connect different payment providers, the different pay bills, and the different maybe Stripe accounts that you have, and it's within the Elarian system, it's seen as one thing. It also simplifies the process of you disbursing funds or collecting funds from different sources, which is something we think it was going to be quite useful, especially for guys in the fintech space. And then analytics is something that we definitely wanted to create a dashboard that's way more useful than what we had previously had at Africa Stalking. So one of the problems that we kind of saw was that, developer, what normally would happen is after maybe a period of maybe every quarter, you'd have to export the data and send it off to your finance team or your data science team to kind of like extract insights out of it. And we asked ourselves, why would that happen? Can't we kind of provide this functionality for developers directly on the dashboard? You can still export the data, but it's much more useful to you. But it's where the data is being collected is the same place you're analyzing the data as well. And what we are able to do is two key things. So we created a visual builder. So for the non-technical people who are going to be interacting with the dashboard, which is there's a high chance there might be one or two people, they're still able to kind of like, specify, I want data from customers who've performed, we've engaged in the past 2 weeks, who've done these particular actions. So it's a simple visual builder versus, and then we also added the ability to write SQL directly on the dashboard, so that maybe if you want to do very much more complex queries on the data, you're not limited to the visual builder itself. You can actually build out very robust SQL statements on the dashboard itself. And then the last thing is geo-distribution. I won't talk too much about this, but essentially what we're trying to do is, it's a feature that's coming, but what essentially we're trying to do is make sure that all the data that you're generating is actually is data compliant. All the data policies, GDPR, the new one in South Africa, we are trying to make sure that all the data kind of is safe and is following the law in the right way. So these are just short visual representations of what unified customer data means, and hopefully it also provides a bit more clarity into what the framework is trying to achieve. So on my right, I'm one of those guys. I have to think through, is it right or left? So on my right, we have a couple of channels here. So telco services, the SMSs, the traditional stuff that we are kind of really good at. And then we have WhatsApp, Telegram, Messenger. Well, we'll be adding in Instagram events, so you can be able to know if somebody liked a photo on your Instagram page or something like that, Facebook, and the web using Google Analytics. So we're able to capture all these different events around an individual customer. And we're able to kind of for each individual customer, we have this complete record of your interaction with them from the beginning up until this moment. And I think this becomes very powerful when you want to make very specific decisions about maybe if a product isn't working too well. It's easier for you to know once you kind of have the engagement data, payment and engagement data in one place, and you're kind of like, okay, are we actually making money? Are users actually paying for our services? Are users actually engaging us on WhatsApp, more on WhatsApp than on USSD? Maybe we need to kill the USSD project. Right, it becomes a lot easier to make these decisions. And then tags, just as I kind of mentioned, once all this data, data has kind of been pulled in, you want to understand like which are the different segments in my client base or my customer base, and this is what tags allows you to do. So you can tag each individual customer as they come in, or tag them as you do your analysis. The next thing is the metadata. Just as you can see, it behaves very similarly to a real-time DB and NoSQL DB, but we designed it specifically to be holding data around the customer. We wanted to make sure that everything about your customer is in one place, and you don't have to talk to too many DBs or talk to too many services to kind of like achieve any particular result that you're looking at. So one of the last things, I don't have a diagram for it, but something we are building out and we probably cover pretty soon is our serverless tech, which is we're calling it fragments. So what fragments are is like sometimes the little pieces of code that you don't want to actually have on your existing code base, you want it to live somewhere. And that's what Elarian fragments allows you to do. Essentially, it's serverless, just providing that serverless functionality for devs. So I'm super excited to kind of share with you guys as well once that comes out. So we are working with Oakley, a company called Oakley. It's on part of the AT family. And the reason behind this is to train developers on how to essentially take advantage of the Elarian platform. So we're super excited. We're going to be announcing the program pretty soon. So excited to kind of like share this with you guys, with the community rather, once it's out. So just to kind of like summarize and bring everything home, our goal with Elarian is to allow operation and business teams to make key decisions on their customers, much faster. And the second thing for us as well is bringing developers closer to the business. Many a times it always feels like the development team and the commercial teams are like speaking completely different languages. Yet we are all trying to serve the same customer. We're all trying to streamline what that looks like and really provide value to our customers. So like this Elarian is essentially trying to bring development speed, improve the development speed, bring the developer much closer to the customer, or rather to the business itself and the commercial teams, because now you're making decisions together as you move forward. And also providing the like really powerful analytics that allows you to better understand your customer and also better understand what essentially build software much better going forward. So we have a Slack community. I'll share the links on the chat, and also our community page, so community.elarian.com, and that's where we are kind of like hosting a lot of our virtual events. Super happy to see you guys join in once some of the events are live. So thank you, and I'm open for questions. I'd love to answer any questions guys may have around what the platform is. If I have a few more minutes, I'd love to actually show something around the dashboard.
Just a question for you, Anthony. For those who do not know, what is USSD?
Oh yeah. So anytime how USSD works essentially is it's a code you dial on your phone, right? So *333#, right, or something like that. And what we essentially provide is the ability for you to code your own menus. So it typically it's used by the telco to provide telco services. So for example, if you want to check your balance, if you want to maybe make even an M-Pesa transaction, USSD is kind of like the key thing. And the reason it's very popular is because you don't need data for it to work. And it's something that for us, we've always felt like it's still going to remain a very important technology in Africa, at least for the next 10 years. Because there's so many things you can do with it. You can build microfinance systems. You can, especially anything that doesn't need a UI can be on a USSD. And I think that's something really cool. One of the things we've been exploring this year has been using USSD for OTP. Because it's actually really, really seamless, right? If you think about it. Because what you want to verify is the phone number. And by default, when you dial a USSD code, you're giving the telco your phone number. So it's much simpler, much faster, and removes the hassle of you having to copy and paste into different spaces just to get verified on something.
Awesome. And also for our users in Kenya, we have this mobile payments system called M-Pesa, which sort of ties my account to my telco provider and allows me to send money from one user to another. And we have so many agents to see where you can withdraw, deposit, make transactions, make payments for your bills. And USSD as well is an interesting platform, mostly also for the whole African community. I guess it's not in every country where internet has reached. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also just to clarify, so Elarian is a customer engagement platform. So based on analytics through the WhatsApp and SMS voice, right?
Yeah.
Is this legal to sort of monitor users' messages, voice calls?
Yes. One of the really cool things is that we are not actually reading your messages, right? We're keeping count of the messages that were sent. So we are not trying to kind of snoop into people's kind of messages and the kind of interactions they have with the business. What we're more focused on is like how many times, for example, does a user interact with you on WhatsApp, right? Because I know so many teams end up building features that are not that useful. All right, you have a WhatsApp bot that nobody uses, and if you think about it, not that many people like using WhatsApp bots, right? Like they're not that friendly, right? So it's definitely something that we are not snooping into people's data. We're actually just collecting, we're keeping record of the interactions and the payments. Yeah.
Okay, and a naive question: can we start a crypto coin on Elarian, maybe?
Dude, it's like we're actually quite excited to see what devs will end up building on this because we've seen a few interesting implementations that devs have built on the platform. Haven't seen anything on crypto, but payments is something that we're seeing is definitely something big there. What you can try to do, I guess, is instead of building a crypto on it, I guess you can create an exchange for guys on USSD, buy crypto on USSD. That would be fun to see.
Awesome. That's an interesting use case. Yeah. And you had a small bit of presentation left. I think we have a few more minutes, about 5 minutes left.
For sure.
Yes, sure.
Okay. Yeah, I've just shared my screen. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, so just to show that we are still a good family with Africa Stalking, even as we build this product, you can actually sign in with your Africa Stalking account. And what we're trying to do is provide that backwards compatibility with Africa Stalking. So the accounts will be pretty much the same, and you can pull in if you have channels, a USSD code, a voice number on Africa Stalking, you can easily pull it into Elarian. So as it crunches some data, one of the key things we wanted to provide on this dashboard was high-level simplicity. So you're able to see everything all at once versus a dashboard where you have to make 57 clicks for you to get one specific thing. So organizations are essentially applications, right? So we try to think about it in the sense that it's not just an app; it's actually a whole organization running on the platform, right? You can see your customer data here. You can manage various channels. You can generate different types of API keys and create different types of apps even within your organization. So it's something that we are quite happy about. Yeah, so the first thing you kind of see in the dashboard is engagement, and you can actually see how many times people have reached out to you on all these different channels: Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, voice. You can see how many phone calls were made, and then you can also see your customers. So you can also see the customers in terms of how many customers are engaging with me on SMS, how many customers are engaging with me on Telegram. You can begin to see that simple overview of what's going on the platform. But this is a tab that I'm always excited about whenever I'm doing anything on the platform. And as I was mentioning about the querying and and kind of like analyzing data, what we have here is we provide three default queries: activities. So activities is like all the activity from Google Analytics, the Instagram API, and all these different spaces, right? You're able to pull it in. Even your Android app can send in events to Elarian. And then the messaging stuff is just around SMS, WhatsApp, and stuff like that. And then payments now, as the word kind of implies. So one of the things I was talking about, which is creating queries. So I can imagine that the data is populated here, and you can begin to add in different types of queries. So you can say, I want an app ID of something, something, something. I can add another filter and say, I want a specific customer number, 07, something, something, and keep on going like that, right? Like as much as you, literally as much as you want. Especially if it's helping you kind of like find a customer segment that's useful to you. You can save the query. What can we call this? Prisma. And it will be available for you here as well. So it's saved as a custom query. The really cool thing is like if you're like, nah, I don't want to do this, or your data science team is on this and they're like, we want to really explore this data. We essentially provide this SQL engine, so you're able to quickly figure out, select customers. So it does all the stuff for you. When you're building the query visually, it's actually writing SQL that's being sent back to kind of fetch the data. But if you're like really keen on getting very specific things, you can actually get really deep into the platform itself. Yeah, so I'm just encouraging more guys to kind of check it out as we kind of figure out a lot of different aspects of the platform, and as we develop more content around the platform, it's really nice to have as many developers test it out as possible. Awesome.
Awesome. One final question on the whole query builder. Does it provide some level of auto completion? Because yes, I may be a developer, but who knows? I may make one typo that maybe I may spend a whole day trying to debug and not figure out what is wrong.
Oh yes, we do support. So all the data that's in your DB, we are able to autofill for you. So you barely need to like write too much. Just know your selects, where that's what you need to know. Everything else can be easily autofilled, and that should be quite helpful in terms of productivity.
Awesome. That's a really interesting tool, and I hopefully people in the chat are also getting ideas. Rama Design, I'm probably butchered that name. So yeah, thank you so much, Anthony. See you next time. Yeah,
Peace.
peace. Cool. So I'll go ahead and share my screen again. I'm very excited about our next guest. I forgot to share my screen. Yes. Crap. So yeah, change the brand. So yeah, our next guest is Segun Adebayo. He is the creator of the award-winning component library, Chakra UI. He is a UI engineer that's passionate about design systems, accessibility, and bridging the gap between design and code. He's also a die-hard Naruto fan. I haven't heard of anime, so I can't wait to hear about that. So yeah, I'll go ahead and bring Segun Adebayo on the stage. Hey, Segun.
Hey, Alex. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So everyone, this session will be more of a Q&A session, talking about design systems, not specific to React, hopefully not specific to React. So yeah, let's get started. So my
Awesome.
first question is, what is Chakra UI?
Yeah, good question. Chakra UI is right now I'd say it's a React component library that gives you all the building blocks that you need to create a website or a web app with speed. So basically, all the decisions you have to make when you're trying to build it, like an app, you need some buttons, you need some menu, you need a dialogue. All of these different building blocks tend to take a lot of time when you're building some sort of product. And in this day and age, when people want to launch products fast, you want to quickly reach product market fit. So Chakra UI just helps you, give you that speed and boost that you need to actually get your product out there in the hands of your customers.
Oh, awesome. And what was the motivation behind building Chakra UI?
Yeah, it's actually out of like personal struggle, and it's very interesting because like I probably say somewhere between like 5 years ago to 6 years ago, I used to like do lots of like heavy UI work. I wasn't a developer, so I spend a lot of my time designing mockups, speccing out the mockups for developers, and just like annotating interactions so developers actually get it right. And then it's like what I mean by from what I mean when I said it came from personal struggle is more like after doing all of this crazy detailed work, you just send it over to developer, and it's like the next week when you see it, it looks like this is not what I designed. Like this is definitely not it. Yeah, and there's always this like constant mismatch between what you design and what the final code output looks like, right? So that that happened like a lot of times on different projects, and I was really curious to see like what what could be the problem here, because as designers I guess maybe we are just too spoiled because we have a lot of amazing tools out there. We have Figma, we have Sketch, we have Adobe XD. You can pretty much design anything on the fly these days once you have the idea. But the speed of design is, I mean, you can very much agree with me that it's not equal to the speed of code or the speed of like translating that to code. It's maybe 10 times more than the speed of design. So, and that's because developers have to wrestle with like libraries, different ideas, CSS, HTML, JavaScript, before getting to the final solution. So that basically influenced my motive to just like, let me try to build something, see if this makes sense. I'm just a designer. I mean, at that point in time, I'm like, I'm just a designer, but maybe I can learn the things that my friends know, and maybe they can teach me to be able to build something that works for them.
Oh, awesome. There's also the other aspect where as a developer you see a really good design and you like it, of course, but then
Yeah.
again you're thinking about the pain of how much it will take you to build the component or that specific
Yeah.
bit of the UI, and sometimes it's painful. So I definitely understand how a component library helps out. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a two-way thing at the end of the day. I mean, I feel like if you ask me this day and age that should a designer learn to code, I'll say if you can and you feel like if you feel interested, I would say you should, because it really helps. Basically, if you go outside the realm of like web, or just go to another industry, for example, engineering, mechanical engineering. If you are doing mechanical design, you definitely need to have good knowledge about like the actual device you're building for. I mean, if you're a
Mm-hmm.
civil engineer, you want to design the plan of a building, you need to know a lot about concrete and different like options of concrete. You cannot just say like, I just know how to design and that's all. I mean, that's why I would say like having good knowledge of the medium you're designing for helps you become a better designer. Essentially, so that's really what influenced my decision to just like switch fields and see if I could really learn this medium. And hopefully, I might get back to design full time. I'm not sure right now. It doesn't look like, but let's see.
Okay, okay, awesome. And also in this day and age, as developers, we've also been spoiled by the numerous component libraries. We have Ant, we have Chakra, we have Spectrum. The list is endless. And sometimes we get out of touch with building a component somehow, one that is reusable. So the question is, what are the aspects that I should consider as a developer when I want to build a component library? For example, the state, accessibility, styling, layouts. Like to know.
Yeah, it's that's a good question. I'd say like it depends. There are two different there are two different ways you can look at this. One would be like I have a product. I just want to build a couple of components to, I mean, to sort of build out the build or scaffold this product pretty fast. And this or the other thought is I just want to build a set of components for maybe for NPMs or other people could install and use for their projects. That those two different, I mean, those are two different worlds, and it's more like you want to choose your battle very carefully, because like it's a switch between intermediate and advanced, and very advanced, especially for the npm world, when you want to like distribute that to everyone there in the open source world, because there are tons of use cases you might not be able to design for, if it was open source, that you probably feel very discouraged when you see the number of issues that come at you when you release it. But if it's just for your product, just you alone, you want to build a set of components to build your products, that's way easier. And I always recommend starting there, before building any, start building an open source component library. All right, so let's just take the simple scenario of I have a web product I want to launch and I want to build a set of components for them. Right. So the different components you have in mind, one would be like the basically the components you want to build and the pattern around that component, right? So if you're building a menu component, there's a spec for a menu component, right? So basically, I'm not sure if most people are aware, but there's usually like a web standard or a web practice, or it's called authoring practices for all of these different components, right? So if you wanted to build a menu, I'd usually advise you just go take a moment to read through the authoring practice for a menu component, right? So the body that sort of sets up these standard practices is called like YARA. So it's sort of like the W3C consortium for like all of these different components. So you just go there, read the spec of how the standard looks like, and it walks you through the HTML semantic structure. It walks you through the CSS. It even walks you through a bit of the JavaScript knowledge you need to have. Or if you are a Stack Overflow copy paste type of human being, it also gives you the code that you need to actually get it working. Maybe if you can port that code over to your React or Vue or any framework, you probably just get that pattern working for you. So that is like the easiest, like low friction way to actually start building out your component. And then for sure, you might run into things like state management. How do you break up state? How do you want to build the component? Do you want to build the components in a way that is super flexible? Or do you just want to be like, if you want the model, this is a model. There's nothing you can do. It's just once you drop it in, it works. And I think that's always a good place to start. And over time, you can build in flexibility into your components.
Interesting. And on mentioning the YRJ standards, is this something that also designers should keep in mind when designing a layout or a UI, for example?
Yeah, well, it depends. If you ask me in an ideal world, in my Sage world, I really would want like every designer to have knowledge, have some sort of knowledge around the standard practices,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that most designers are very familiar with the material design guideline. Most people are also familiar with the human interface guideline by Apple. So it's like, in addition to these different guidelines you use or you try to learn when designing, it'd be good to also like learn for the medium, right? Because material design and like human interface guideline is basically, they are all principles. They are not like platform specific guides. They're just like general principles in building app or designing applications. But for the web in particular, I'd love if designers could also like learn some sort of these area practices and authoring standards for the web as well.
Okay, awesome. So, and when I'm building a component, let's just start with a button, which is the hello world for design systems. How do you
Mhm.
usually decouple state? Because I was also going through React Spectrum, which is also decoupled into three other libraries, I think. One for managing behavior, another one for interaction. How did you go about it, or how would you go about it when building a code or decoupling state?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I usually start with like try to avoid like overthinking or over engineering most of the things. So if it's as
Uh-huh.
simple as just creating a button element and just writing a bunch of CSS, that actually works for most of the scenarios, right? So it's you probably maybe your button design might have a couple of like left icon, right icons, like over active states, even though these are like states that you might want, you're tempted to write some JavaScript code for. I'll definitely recommend starting from like just use the CSS to those states first. Like just use the colon over colon active, get most of your things done, and ship your product. Really, if you're building if you're in the business of UI engineering, I can go in depth to tell you like there are some quirks, browser quirks around active and over and when these different events fire. But if you're in the business of shipping a product, I definitely recommend like I'll start with the simple things first, and then improve complexity depending on like the stage you are in your business. I always like to like correlate the effort and the result. If the result
Mhm.
is shipping a product to your customers, then maybe you can start simple.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So something that I came to learn of as well through React Spectrum is React Aria, which is Adobe's sort of library that you can build a component that is unstyled and is completely accessible. Is this something? Is there a library you use to handle accessibility, and or how do you go about accessibility when building? Yeah, besides just shipping a product, yes, I do believe in shipping. However, you still have to comply with the Y area standards. How do you go about it?
Yeah, for sure, and that's like one of the things I mentioned like early on, which is basically reading through the wire area guide or specifications because everyone tends to build based on the same standard. So it's like there's a single standard, but there are multiple implementations of that standard. I always recommend you attempt to build your own implementation of that standard just to learn what it feels like, to learn all the different like edge cases and scenarios you need to handle. While there are other libraries that can help you, like Chakra UI and React Area, I mean, those are awesome libraries that take away all the burdens from you. But if you want to be a UI engineer or you want to actually build design system or component libraries, then you probably want to try to read the spec and try to translate it into like how you best understand it because there's a high chance that there might be your own unique there might be your own perspective. The way you see that spec and the way you translate or interpret that spec into code might be very different. It might be unique. It might be different from Chakra UI. It can also be different from React Area. At the end of the day, it's like multiple solutions to the same spec.
Okay, okay. And are there any workflows or tools that you use to test components against, let's say, a device, platforms, and browsers? And I'm not going to throw shade, but thank God that IE was sort of brought to its end of life, and it
Yeah,
was a bit
sure.
of a pain. So, are there any tools or workflows that you use to test and make sure that everything renders as everything behaves as it's supposed to be?
Yeah, sure. So there are different levels to test, especially when it comes to building a component library.
Mm-hmm.
There's the I tend to call it some sort of like unit test for components, which is like if you wanted to build a menu or a drop down component. I mean, a unit test would be like, or an interaction test would be like, I click on the menu button and the menu option shows up, and I can click a menu option. So that is some sort of like unit test that only tests that this functionality works the way the user would expect it to work, essentially. So for those kind of tests, I grab in like React testing library. There's also another library called Axe, just Axe, which it just like pulling to actually test the DOM structure of your component. It renders your component and tests the DOM structure of that component. And React testing library also has a couple of utilities to test interactions, to fire different events and run assertions based on the event you fire. And that also at least helps you get like the meat of your component working correctly. And that's like in some sort of like Node.js, I mean, environment. You're just testing interactions, rendering it in the DOM and asserting that different interactions work correctly. Then when you want to go into the browser specific like environment, you could set up like Cypress to also like, I mean, boot up the components to actually in different browser contexts and actually like run the different interactions as well. And there's also a Cypress testing library that I'm recently learning to use as well. So that's very useful. I use Browser Stack as well. So I mean, from time to time to test out, just boot up the component and test it in different browsers and different environments, Firefox, Safari, mobile, Safari, iOS, iPhone. Basically, just make sure that it works correctly across all these different devices. And that's what makes the component development process really tedious, because you find many quirks, I mean, in different browsers, and you have to just add some extra if else. If it's Apple, if it's Safari, it's like fix this. And I mean, it's just like getting into those details is what really makes up a UI engineer, and like making building component libraries easy for most people.
Okay, thank you. That was very detailed. And for the last question, in case the chat you have any question, feel free to ask. And yes, Laza and engineering is a thing, and it's okay. So the last question is, do I need a custom select?
No, you don't, at least to start.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and the reason why I say so, even though that's just a fun question, I feel like building like a very good accessible select component is something. I know of a team. I think there's the team at Radix UI tried to build a select component. I think close to like between like 3 to 5 months. I'm not sure how long it took specifically, but I know they worked on it for years to actually get like lots, like the perfect select component, like custom select. Even if you check out the work that's been done by the team at React Select, if you just take a look at React Select on its own, you see that it's a whole lot of use cases and lots of edge cases they try to handle in a single component, and that is quite a number of things you need to take care of to make sure you build the select correctly. That's not to say you cannot build a select component. You can if you have the audacity and the courage to do that. Please try. It will just take a while.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you very much for your time. I am out of questions. Thank you for your time, and I will see you on online or later. Yes,
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today, Alex.
anytime. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, everyone. So that was all for the talks. We have one final bit of the session. So this Friday, we will, one of our Prisma ambassadors, Joey Nether, will be organizing the first online session of GraphQL Nairobi Meetup. There will be two speakers, and the first one will be using GraphQL with Prisma by Joey Nether himself and Mahmoud Abdel Wahab, who's a Prisma, well, a developer advocate over here at Prisma. And we also have another talk from Julian Mayoga on how to create GraphQL queries using the GraphQL JS library. I will be sharing the link shortly in the chat. And finally, we would encourage you to check the upcoming events on the Front-End Development South Africa. They have excellent talks, and they also have an upcoming talk from a Prisma ambassador about creating a hybrid backend using Prisma and a headless CMS. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to go ahead and share the link to GraphQL Nairobi. Give me a moment. That's shared, and that is all for today. Thank you for tuning in for this session of GraphQL Nairobi. Connect Dev Africa. See you next time.